This committee is now called back to order. We're now called back to order. We're ready. We have here now before us Director of Board of Public Service. Would you please just kind of review your budget with us? I did inform you that we are having this recorded and aired as a part of the committee's new kind of action of trying to allow this process to be a little bit more visible. We had 2 public hearings last week that we were pretty well attended, and this is just a continuation of that. So if you would review the budget for us.
Good morning, and I'd like to start off and first introduce the folks that I brought with me today. Joe Kuss, my Deputy City Engineer from Board of Public Service. If you just raise your hand up. Rick Ernst, my Commissioner of Facilities Management. Chris Amos, my Commissioner of Equipment Services. Bill Madden, Executive Assistant. And then I have Linnea Magnuson, who's our Curator and Superintendent of Soldiers Memorial. So if we have any very, very detailed questions beyond my knowledge of these things, we can certainly address those, if you will. I'd like to start off with 900, the Board of Public Service, and just my motif here is going to go through and talk a little bit about what we requested last year, what we asked for this year, and what we actually received per E&A. So, and then we'll give you some highlights on each division and go through questions should you guys have them. So in 13, we had a budget of $2.574822. We requested $2.938984, and E&A approved for 14 $2.626964. This represents about a $52,142 or a 2.03% increase over our 13 appropriation. Out of that, $88,171 is in personnel increases, and a decrease of $36,029 is in other budgetary items. As far as personnel are concerned, in 13 we had 50 full-time positions. In 14 we have 48. I'd like to provide a little detail on that. We lost a mechanical engineer position, a project architect, and an engineering tech 1, and we added back to the table a special project manager. I'd like to take a minute and just explain the special project manager and what the role of that person would be. This person would be in charge of prevailing wages, Davis-Bacon, and wage rate compliance primarily. We have found that we have a magnitude of engineering individuals and architectural individuals that can monitor the construction aspects of a project without issue. Traditionally, those people have always done wage rate compliance monitoring on a spot basis. We've received a number of sunshine requests and questions concerning prevailing wages, Davis-Bacon specifically on federally funded type projects. And so what we'd like to do is add this position to monitor that. And when I say monitor, I mean track and document, do field interviews to make sure that individuals working on the job are actually being paid the proper wage rates in compliance with our specifications, so that when we are called to the table or called to the carpet and ask questions about it, we have full documentation of what that would entail. Also, beyond that, we have an individual who is in our department, separate of the airport's compliance office on minority compliance, and she monitors MWBE and labor workforce for us. This individual would also assist her with that as well. So what we'd have is a 2-person section that looks at non-construction type items that we require in our contracts to make sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and we feel that is a very important thing to have. If you look through the budget for 900, there are a few decreases, 5235, 50 and 5659, 5635. They're relatively small decreases in the budget, but what I want to say about those items are we actually asked in each of those line items for the same amount as we did last year. We felt that number was a good number to go with, and those items were simply cut by the budget division in an attempt to bring our budgetary number down. There are 2 ads. There are 3 ads. Obviously, the salaries, because we had the special project manager we're adding in here, although we did remove 3 positions, but the matrix increased our personnel budget. The communications, which is 5636, we asked for an increase of about $3,960. And what this, as far as reimbursement of our field staff for their personal cell phone usage for work. Those are out on construction sites, They get called, they have to call in. Rather than issue them city cell phones, they use their own phone. They fill out a log sheet, and we reimburse them on a per-call type basis. And then lastly, 5655, which is internal service, gas and diesel, we've increased our budget $11, which is more or less just a rounding issue for 900. And in a nutshell, that is the president's office.
Questions from members of the committee? Alderwoman Cruzen?
Rich, thanks for the overview. Grants and other funds is up by about 1.7 million. What is that?
Other funds.
Well, it's here. Total budget's 27 million, right? I don't know, it's in this book. I don't know, I was just wondering what that is. We can come back to that. I
Okay.
guess it's,
Do you have any idea? Okay.
I'm on page 225 in the annual operating plan book.
That's good. Big one. Can you pass me one of those?
Yeah, right, I get that. I get that. I just was,
I'd certainly be glad to look into it for you and
okay.
get back to
All right,
you. I just don't know.
it may just be a
what that
way that
is.
it's being presented here. Second question, you want to add, and I think you got approval to add, am I right about this, the wage rate compliance
Yes.
person? And is that fixing something that you suspect or know is a problem, or,
It will. As I mentioned, traditionally, our construction staff, we require certified payrolls from everyone on every project. And so traditionally.
even
our-
like ward capital improvement projects or
Any
whatever?
project that we do.
Okay.
Certified payrolls for every individual who works on the job. And what
Right.
those certified payrolls show is that individual working on the job, whatever their classification,
Right.
are getting paid the correct scale, either per Missouri Department of Labor Standards or Davis-Bacon if it's a federally funded job. So traditionally, what would happen, those certified payrolls would come in. Our construction field staff would do a quick run-through of about maybe a quarter to a third of those, and they'd file them. Just kind of a spot check.
Just a visual, does this make sense,
A
kind of
quick
look?
run-through to make sure. And so recently, in the past couple of years, we've been called with a number of sunshine requests and issues saying that, on a particular job, a contractor is not paying prevailing wages or Davis-Bacon. That becomes a big issue.
Yep.
So then we have to go and investigate this with Missouri Department of Labor Standards.
So that would
And-
mean that they had filed a false report with you?
Not necessarily. Maybe
Oh.
they're paying, it's very, very complicated, and so what we want to do is, rather than just have a field construction guy who would look through this and maybe
Yeah.
find a problem, we want someone to take the bull by the horns and say, we're very proactive with this. We realize it's a big requirement of our contracts, and monitor this and track it and handle any issues that come up with it, because what literally happens is this is between the contractor and the state. But as the owner, it's a contract requirement of ours, so many, many times it comes back to us to resolve.
Right.
And I'd rather catch it up front than a year later or at the end of the
So
project.
this is sort of an audit function?
It is an audit function.
And would that, does the comptroller not have some audit ability or responsibility of one or the other over that?
I can't really answer that question. It is
Okay.
a contractual requirement that all construction public work contracts have in them. So I do not believe that they perform any audits on these, am I correct?
That's correct, yeah, they really don't look at the
Okay,
wage compliance stuff, they're really more focused on
Right.
the money aspect and, was the project
Sure.
within budget and that sort of thing.
gotcha, okay.
So we'd like to do a better job of it, in essence. And
Will this person be a construction person? Are they already there?
no.
Will they be
It's-
will they be an accountant? Will they be an auditor? Will they be a construction person?
It would be a person who, first of all, understands construction. It would be a person who understands labor and labor laws. And it would be a person who would have to be able to work with my construction staff in order to, and contractors to make sure that these issues are not there. And when they are there, to address them and get them resolved. Because in essence, what happens is, if these issues come up and they don't catch them to the end of the project,
Yeah, it's
they
really
have to
hard.
all be paid at the end with
Right.
fines and penalties that go with it. We don't want to get in a situation where, we're debarring contractors
Right.
because they made a mistake and we didn't help them find it. Now, if they make the mistake intentionally, I have no issue with that.
Yeah,
But this will
okay.
help us all through the, forest on this one.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions at
I
this
believe you
time.
had an answer to your
Yeah,
earlier
that
question.
$4 million, that is where the internal service fund, each department we've added an internal service fund to fund their gasoline for their own use. This is in 910, where they still have to pay for it. So this is the fund that pays for the gas, and then they're reimbursed from each department under their internal service fund account. So it's something that wasn't there 2 years ago. It was there last year and this year, just because it just started last year.
All right, great, thank you.
That completely. Alderwoman Florida?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't see anything out of the ordinary in your budget from last year. I just have a couple of questions about primarily facilities management and with our sustainability plan, how we're integrating some of those goals from the plan into maintaining our own facilities. That's question number one. And then two, a plan for our fleet, managing our own fleet. So those are two, in recession, really difficult, lofty goals that are, how are we doing and.
And I'm going to go through each of those. I just did 900 to President's office first.
Okay.
If-
Oh, okay, I didn't understand you were gonna go
If you
through.
want me to
Okay.
go through those now, or
All
if
right,
you can
okay.
wait until I go through those,
That's
I
fine.
might answer some of your questions.
Okay, so he hasn't gone through the other department.
Good point.
Okay, that's fine. And we've been kind of
Right.
listening to an overview and then proceeding with questions rather than making you go
Oh, great.
through each
Okay.
department. But
Would you like me to go
if
through?
you want to go through
If
each.
it's fine, I would
Yeah,
think we
that's
should do
fine.
that. Go through
Okay.
the other departments.
Okay, great.
That's fine.
And then
No-
we can come
yeah.
back even to you, with you all.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so 903, Facilities Management Division. The appropriation in 13 was $10,103,667. The request for 14 was $11,736,000. The E&A approved budget for 14 was $10,278,525. This represents $174,858, or a 1.73% increase over the FY13 appropriation. 97,338 is in personnel increases. 77,520 is other budgetary increases. Last year in 13, we had 37 full-time positions. This year, we have 37 as well, and no new positions were added or changed. I do want to say, before I go through the details, that the challenges of facilities management always are and have been for the past number of years. The equipment keeps getting older, and we have no capital funding for replacement. So as equipment gets older, it costs more to maintain. So as far as the salary increases go, those were basically the salary matrix increases that we received this year. No other changes there. We had some, again, a number of items that we had requested, the same as last year, or increases on, and I'll kind of highlight the major ones. Facilities and grounds, which is 5238. We increased our budget $20,000. We actually asked for another $110,000 beyond that. These are items such as light fixtures, light bulbs, CFLs, fluorescent tubes, copper wire, HVAC motor compressors, filters. You guys get the general idea. All the items that are maintained as part of a building's operational system. And that one, actually, we were cut, but we still increased the budget $20,000. Okay. Let's see. Facilities and grounds, 5438. We decreased the budget $20,000. We actually asked for $30,000 more, which would have been an increase. But again, we were cut on that one, and that was for replacement of large horsepower motors and compressor type items we have in our buildings. 5638, which is the buildings, facilities and grounds, another facilities and grounds item. We increased the budget $17,845. We had actually asked for an increase of another $100,000, and we're cut to this increase of $17,000. The big item that's included in this item is 1520 Market, as well as many of our contract services such as HVAC, elevator monitoring, electrical contracting, plumbing services, elevator inspections, fire alarm testing, things along those lines. The utilities are a big item in this budget as well, and I just want to spend just a minute to talk about those. 5649, our electric, there was an increase in the budget of $234,000 over the past fiscal year. We actually asked for another $100,000 beyond that, but we're cut to $234,000. This request of 10% is an increase in electricity cost, not in electrical consumption. The Public Service Commission approved a 13% rate increase, but the division decreased its consumption and feels there will be a 3% overall cost savings at the end. So we feel like we've done a good job cutting the budget on it, and we will do the best we can to minimize the cost, and we have done, and we can talk a little bit when I finish the other utilities about sustainability items as well. Utilities, the gas budget decreased $50,000, 5649. We had actually asked for $50,000 more, as the same as last year, and that budget was cut $50,000. Steam utility was a decrease of $125,000, and we asked for that $125,000, the same as last year, and we're cut as well. And those items, we are on projection now to spend what is actually in the budget for this year. So we felt like asking for the same amount was probably even less than what we need, but we did the best we could to minimize it. As far as sustainability, while I'm on facilities management, we have received a Department of Energy grant, and we have done retrofitting of the lights in this building as well as the Carnahan Courthouse. We have also looked at a number of other things like setting up thermostats in the summertime, setting them down in the wintertime. Of course, you know, you always get your fair share of complaints that come along with that. We're very aware of the mayor's sustainability plan, and Rick Ernst, my commissioner of facilities, as well as Chris Amos from ESD, will be on Catherine Warner's sustainability task force. So we're going to look at every option that we can within cost reason to be more sustainable. If there is a return on investment, we're going to embark on it if we possibly can.
Okay, my other question would be, is there anything in facilities management?
You haven't completed. Can we do that?
Oh, okay,
Let him
sorry.
complete all of that.
Yes.
And then we're going to come back around
Oh, all right.
with questions.
Okay. Equipment Services Division 910, appropriation for 13 was $9,153,458. The request for 14 was $10,095,411. The E&A approved budget for 14 was $9,495,652. This represents a $342,194 increase, or 3.74% increase over fiscal year 13 appropriation. $107,852 is personnel increase cost. $234,342 are other budget increases. In fiscal year 13, we had 70 full-time positions. In fiscal year 14, we have 70. We have not added any new positions. Again, as in facilities management, the age of the fleet with very limited capital funding has made maintenance costs increase. We have approximately 2,400 total vehicles in the fleet today. 1,490 are included in the capital replacement program. 824 vehicles out of 1,490 are in need of immediate replacement today. To bring the fleet up to par today would cost $77 million. $41 million for the non-emergency fleet and $36 million for the St. Louis Fire Department fleet. The Capital Committee recently has budgeted about $9 million for FY14 for vehicle replacement, and that'll be borrowed for a 10-year payback. if that all goes through. In previous years, we have replaced pumpers, hook and ladders. We've refurbished some trucks. In the street department, we have replaced primarily dump trucks and snow plows, trash trucks, major operational vehicles, not vehicles that are one or two man crew type vehicles, major operational vehicles to keep the city's fleet moving. This year, we replaced 4 alley refuse trucks, 2 basket trucks for traffic and lighting, 3 prisoner transport vehicles for the sheriff, 12 mowers for parks and forestry, a tree trimming truck, a tree planting truck, a stump cutter, and a chipper. And again, operational type items that are needed for day-to-day operations. There are currently 210 take-home vehicles in the city today. 172 of those are regular take-homes, which mean every day. 38 are occasional, which mean sometimes they go home when people are on emergency call. We have been very diligent with Equipment Services to encourage all of our departments to reduce the number of take-home vehicles. 2 years ago, my staff and entire BPS 900, all our fleets, reduced this number of take-home vehicles essentially to a handful and for on-call vehicles. These vehicles are parked at secure overnight locations, and the employee picks them up in the morning and they return them at nighttime. That cuts down on wear and tear of the vehicles. It also cuts down on fuel consumption, and we have thought that program has worked very well. We have promoted this to many other departments, but we by far are the largest department that are doing this today. Last year, we removed $4.8 million from Equipment Service Division's budget, and we placed it in each individual department's budget for fuel, with the hope that people would be much more accountable for their actual fuel usage as opposed to just spending money from our budget. So far, we have some minute results that are relatively good. We do have good news that the cost of fuel has actually went down somewhat, so we are ahead with fuel costs. We're not necessarily sure that fuel consumption has reduced where we'd like it to because the cost of fuel went down. So when a department director gets the monthly spreadsheet and it has a green marked on the bottom, they think they're good, so they don't have any issue with going back. We're going to try to tighten it up the best we can and help their consumption. As far as salaries go, the only increase in this division was matrix increases, as I talked about. Our fleet support, we increased the budget $50,000. We actually asked for an additional $210,000 more, but we're cut on this item in 5239. This is expected shortages in this line item, increase in parts, and obviously the age of the fleet. The fleet right now is between 12 to 14 years old, average age about 13 years. So I don't know how many people in here drive a 13-year-old car, but if you do, you'd understand that there's a lot of maintenance that goes along with that. We have a couple of other items that are relatively larger items. We have 5639 fleet services. We increased our budget $100,000. Again, we asked for another $120,000 on top of that, and we were cut. Again, shortage in major truck repairs, age of fleet. 5639 1000, which is fleet services for the Metro Garage, which maintains our major fire apparatus. We had an increase in budget in $70,000. The expected shortage, major repairs due to age of the apparatus, we actually had asked for another $130,000, but we're cut on that one as well. Beyond that, we had a couple of other smaller items like 5650, which were environmental services, increased budget $10,000, and basically this one were the proper cleaning of oil water separators at Hampton and our North and South Refuse Garage to meet MODNR requirements. I do want to say that we're working very hard to hopefully at some point in the very near future have a combined facility to maintain our vehicles for refuse. We're working very, very hard towards that. A couple of years ago, we closed the fire garage on Clark Street, Spruce Street, and we saved $50,000 annually doing that. So we're working hard to consolidate operations, bring them together, and make it more efficient. We're not just there yet, but we have a couple buildings to take a look at, and we're moving in that direction. Also, the idea would be to bring the fire trucks back from the Metro Garage. When we do this, maintain the refuse vehicles and the fire trucks at the same location with our own staff as opposed to a contract type environment. And then lastly, I have Soldiers Memorial, Division 911. The appropriation for 13 was $147,855. The request for 14 was $191,541. And the E&A approved budget for 14 was $149,455, which represents a $1,600 or 1.08% increase over the 13 appropriation. $1,960 in personnel increases, $360 in other budget decreases. Full-time, we have 3 positions in 13. In 14, we've also had the same, requested 3 positions. We traded a secretary for a clerk 1 position, a downgrade of a position, as we feel like we could save some money with that, and the responsibilities would more align with what we need at Soldiers Memorial. So the salary increases were predominantly the matrix increases. The downgrade helped us with that as well. We did ask for an additional security guard at the memorial. If you're not aware, activities at the memorial happen 7 days a week, at nights and weekends, and also SEMA is in the basement over there. We have 1 security guard presently. And so what basically happens is we have a gentleman who works so much time and he receives receives complimentary time off, but he can never use any of it because there's no one to replace him as an armed security guard. So what we have done last year as a stopgap measure is Ron Hill worked with us. He worked with us to place a city marshal over there and give this gentleman his due days off, so we weren't acquiring all this time. The other items in this budget are pretty straightforward. We've decreased about 4 items, a couple $100 at a time, just simply because we were not using them and we felt like there's no reason to appropriate them if we don't need them. So I am done.
Okay, then.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll complete you. You continue and then come back to Alderwoman Cruiser.
Okay,
Okay.
I just have, I mean, I really only have one question.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, and because I think you answered the question about the fleet in your presentation. Facilities management, it's hard not to notice how this place is falling apart with peeling plaster and that type of thing. So
We try hard with what limited money we have.
So is there anything, I mean, that you truly need to maintain the building and to, you secured a grant to deal with the light bulbs and changing out the light bulbs and that type of thing. Is there anything that you need to do what you think you need to do to maintain this building that you did not get?
Here's what I would like to say.
Okay, I mean, is there any pressing
Yeah.
issue? Because I
Here's
had
what I would
my-
like to say about that.
My office flooded, you know.
Here's
and-
what I like to say about that. I'm very proud of the staff. They work very
Yeah.
hard with what they're given. And I think that when you're asked to put together a budget, you try to project what you could do the best you could. But I think we're all in this together, and we know that money's short. So I'm going to say no, and I know I'll probably get some not-so-good looks from my staff, but the challenge is to do more with less. And so there are probably other departments that probably need the money more than we do, and I'm going to say no. We will do everything we can with what we have.
But I think that when something happens with this building, we're expecting you to be able to take care of that rather than it come out of our own department budgets, that type of thing. So I
We
guess, do we have a short-term, mid-term, and long-range plan?
We do.
In maintaining this building? And is it transparent? And, you know what I mean? And do you need,
We know every capital need
Okay.
of this and all
Okay.
of our facilities, and we talk about this very early and often. Here's the problem. You can project until the cows come home, but I cannot tell you that an air conditioner that is 7.5 years old is going to fail on July 27th.
No, I
I don't
know.
know that until it happens. And so what I got to do is, we have to, when that happens, we have to reprioritize on the move, and we do that quite a bit. And so we put out fires, we put Band-Aids on things, we hold them together. Same holds true for equipment services. But I think that, if I could say to you, if I really needed some money, it would be millions of dollars if
Okay.
we were going to fix all the problems, and I know that's not realistic. So I prefer that we go into this as a team partner, and we continue to do what we've done so well at. Use our money wisely, use it effectively, and just do what we've done. We have not run into a problem with that yet.
okay.
Capital needs are probably there. We need to replace all the equipment that does this, but that's not a budget item, it's capital needs.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Alderwoman Cruz, I'm going to come back to you in case you have any.
Two quick things. Now that we are also having to maintain 1520 Market, I mean, the two buildings, at least from my point of view, that the public sees most is City Hall and 1520 Market. And anything that we can do to make those buildings shine a little bit more, sparkle a little bit more. I mean, you can't help but tell the difference when you go to the Capitol in Jeff City. That place is sparkly, you know, it's polished, it's spit polished, and you know, I guess they're keeping enough money for themselves there, and so I think anything we can do, 1520 Market in, you know, the courts entrance, the main entrance, I know we're redoing the plaza there. I don't know, I tend to think that the way the buildings look, the better they look, the better employees feel about it, the better the public feels about it, and all those kinds of things. So it's kind of a, you know.
And we do cosmetic repairs, we do maintenance on all the buildings. The problem again becomes is you can't put your eggs all in one basket. If HVAC fails, if heating fails, if
Right.
lighting
Yeah,
fails,
sure.
we can't do business. So Rick does a great job with his staff making
Right.
it acceptable.
Right.
We would love to go beyond that.
Sure.
It's tough to do that with limited
Right.
resources.
Yeah. Second thing is, I know that, or what you said is that you'd like to bring the fire department trucks and the street fire department trucks back into being maintained by the city. It seems to me, now maybe I've been listening to Metro too much, but it seems to me that Metro's done a really good job maintaining those, and that, you know, they have the garages and the parts and the folks, and, you know, so that these vehicles are all on a preventative maintenance kind of thing, and so I'm just wondering, is that, why is that desirable? Because we would have to have similar people when they have those folks,
Right.
you know.
So Metro does a good job for us. We're happy with what they do. I think there are a few items that go with that. I think we would have better control over cost if they worked for us. Chris and his staff, again, do an outstanding job with the Metro folks, talking with them, and they have a little different mentality than we do because they're not in our day-to-day mix. They know when a truck comes in, if it has problems, they fix everything that is wrong. That's okay, except the problem becomes is sometimes the truck, we don't have time for that truck to be in that shop for that period of time to have everything fixed because our fleet is old. And now we have a backup reserve fleet out on the street, and it's not as
And these are fire trucks that we're
Right,
talking about?
these are
Do they
all
maintain other things other
just
than fire
apparatus,
trucks?
fire apparatus, that's
Yeah.
it. We maintain the command vehicles, the ambulances, all that,
Right,
just the
right,
big
that's
trucks.
what I thought, okay.
And so there's also a pride that goes with this as well. We have individuals that work for Chris that have worked on fire trucks for years. They know the ins and outs of them. Again, the Metro guys do a good job, but at the end of the day, they fix buses predominantly for a living.
Right.
And it's a little bit of a different animal, and they also rotate their staff around a little bit too. I would say, in my mind, fixing buses is probably an easier thing than fixing fire trucks.
I imagine
So
that's true,
I would
yeah.
think that the gentlemen who fix the fire trucks think it's pretty interesting in the beginning, but after some period of time, they say, you know what, if I'm getting paid for 8 hours a day, it might be better if I go back to doing something that I prefer or is a little bit easier for me. So there's pride.
Although, when you're getting paid for 8 hours a day, you gotta fix a bus or a fire truck, whatever's
Right.
assigned to you.
Just depends on what they like
Just like
better,
we
their
all do.
preference. So I think there's an interest that goes along, and a pride that goes along with us doing it, and I also believe there's cost savings. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
I do agree that the service we get from Metro is good, the cooperation is good, the quality of work is no problem. Really, the main difference is a sense of urgency about the mission itself. If the fleet was new, it wouldn't be a problem, but we're at the end of the cycle. So with 13, 14-year-old fire apparatus trying to be on the road every day, we rarely have more than one spare in the entire city with the system we have now. So we would stay late for overtime if we had to. We would come in on Saturday and Sunday if we had to. The Metro guys are not flexible with that, even if we paid the bill, because their employees don't work those hours. So That's the main issue.
Okay.
You're right, that we're appreciative of what Metro has done for us. If they hadn't done what they did, we wouldn't be able to maintain it any other way, because our facility was out of date, couldn't fit the engine.
Gotcha, okay. No further questions.
I was informed by the clerk that the Public Safety Committee meeting has been canceled for today. I know you're highly disappointed, but no meeting. Other questions from members of the committee? Alderman Williamson.
Just a few. Kind of retracting, I guess, when it comes to the maintenance of the vehicles of the fire truck. Like Alderman Crusoe said, how much are we paying Metro to maintain our fire trucks?
Monthly, we started out between $60,000 and $70,000 a month. Is that our average?
Our average is closer to 90,000. We're gonna be about $250,000 short this year of what the budget line item was. That's why we requested the increase for next year. And we got part of the increase, but we didn't get enough, so we'll be overspent next year too. EMA approved us overspending in that account, as well as 5639, the parent account for that. So the real problem is that major systems fail. Doesn't have anything to do, it would cost the same if we were doing it. They have to replace transmissions and engines and pump housings and, $20,000 items at a pop that are just plain worn out.
So why aren't we doing it?
We don't have a facility big enough to do that. The facility that was across the street by the police station over here was much too small. Metro has a beautiful big bay facility, and Chris could give you the square footage and all these type of things. But, in order to tip the cab over to get to the engine, they have to raise the ladder up. And so we have to be able to get into these old units and fix these things relatively quickly. Now, I know the next question you're probably going to ask is, well, could you rent space from Metro and put our guys in there willing to do it? We've asked that. We thought that would be a good way to save money. But there are issues with unions and agreements and so forth. So that's not really an option. So the idea, the long-term idea, is to bring the two refuse garages together, bring the big, large fire trucks together, have a pool of mechanics all in the same place that are managed, and find some efficiencies doing this.
So do we have a space where the street department is located? I know we don't have a facility.
Right.
But is that where you're thinking about locating
Yeah.
a large garage? Or you thinking about going to somewhere else?
Right now, we're up in the air. We've asked St. Louis Development Corporation, CDA, to look with us, Rodney Krim and his group, to look with us and help us to identify a spot. Todd Walterman and I have been looking at this for 3-4 years now, since this first came up. And we have not found a facility that is reasonable in cost and that accommodates the size of the vehicles at this point.
Okay. And I know you mentioned 2 positions. Somebody is monitoring the David Baker's wages and the minority compliance.
Yes.
What positions are those, Rich, and where are they located in 900? And the second question to that would be, you
Okay.
guys work with the airport when
Right.
it comes to minority participation, going through some of the problems that we have in the city of St. Louis when it comes to minority participation and monitoring certain job sites?
We have a program manager too, Alicia Ramey Hinton, who works for us in the Board of Public Service, and she assists us with monitoring MW, and then she also works with the airport people on that. She works with Michael Holmes and his group for doing workforce participation. So this new position that I'm talking about adding, which would be the special project manager, would primarily be for Davis Bacon and wage rate compliance. However, we would also put in there the MW and the labor workforce, because, again, those are non-construction type compliance items that we want to pay more attention to. They are very important items, and, I don't want them secondary on the TO with an engineer who doesn't know much about them, but knows a lot about concrete and just signs off on them. I want to focus that.
That's good, because we need help. Airport is just swamped. They just
Right.
can't handle all the jobs that come to the city of St. Louis when it comes to, minority compliance. The transportation center, can you explain it to me briefly over here? I know it's a kind of a joint venue with the Control and BPS, and what, are we generating revenue? from
One more
this?
time with that.
The transportation center,
Transportation
And what is the
Center.
relationship
Joe,
between
go ahead and answer that
DPS
one if you like.
comptroller and the money?
Yeah, the comptroller really, if you will, manages the building. We do, through facilities, the maintenance on the building. Amtrak and Greyhound, if you will, rent space in the building. So they pay rent to the city. Rent money does not go into Department 900 budget. It goes into, well, I guess it goes into general revenue.
To the comptroller?
Comptroller's
Yes.
budget.
Okay.
But they manage the building, the personnel in the building. If things go wrong, they put in a work request that, you know, there's a plumbing problem, there's an air conditioning problem, et cetera. So we maintain that piece of it, kind of like we would City Hall or any city building. But there is rent paid.
Right. Okay. My last thing, the steps that you're putting in at 1520 in the middle, we appreciate that, that's great. Yeah, is, so that was a great idea. Redoing that plaza's exists.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, so that's all I
The elevators are also being replaced up there, if anybody hasn't noticed. Because
Yeah.
those things were a tremendous problem.
Right.
Forever. And two of them are fully operational now, and four of them are four of them are
Okay, great. All right, good job, thank you.
Alderman Moore, any questions?
First of all, I'd like to not offend anyone. I want to comment on and compliment Joe Coos, who I think is a gentleman and a scholar, one of the smartest guys I met besides my dad. And Richard Franks here, I have a great admiration for him in city government. Donald Williams is a jewel for my community. And please don't ever take him away. He is just an absolute jewel. He makes he makes BPS understood.
No worries.
He does a great job.
Thank you.
I've been waiting on this. Do you handle all city vehicles?
At this point, we handle all city vehicles other than the police department and the airport, the treasurer's office.
And the two water treatment plants.
So you do handle the building inspectors and all them guys?
Yes, sir.
It turns my stomach when I'm at the malls and I see these city vehicles just riding around during the weekend, all day. If we don't build a facility, we need to pave a parking lot. Put those cars on that lot and get a bus and bus them in the mornings when they come to work, take them to their vehicles, drop them off, and leave the tires, the gas that we're spending, the wear and tear. We had one inspector got fired in my ward. He would transport 7 students to school every morning about 6:30. I would stand there and watch him. He was a very wise guy, but he got busted on something else, but it was just time out for it. But using those vehicles, I feel like if anything else, we aldermen ought to have a vehicle to take home as many miles as I put in on my vehicle. That is absolutely crazy that we can, it's not good arithmetic, as Bill Clinton say. All that wear, all those tires we have to buy, all that gas and the maintenance, and these people are riding around on the weekend shopping at our expense. And we need to come up with something very simple. Park them on our lot over here. And then let them walk over. Or take them down on 14th Street when they get through selling all those cars they stole. And maybe we can get that land over there back. But it is really a travesty, a sin and a shame to see all those vehicles. How many vehicles you say we own?
2,400 total.
2,400 total, that's correct.
And I look at the wear and the maintenance on these vehicles. Are we anticipating doing something about this?
Can I address your first question, then I'll go to the second question? The first question is, Equipment Services Division fuels them and maintains them. We do not assign them. We have absolutely no say in assigning them. Each appointing authority over that division assigns them. In that case, the billing division is Director Deacon assigns them. The billing commissioner, Frank Oswald, assigns them. We couldn't agree with you more. We have a plan. We have arranged this with the fire department to pave a
Don't you
lot
have input?
inside a fence for them to park the cars every day.
Don't you have input? Do you have input?
We've given it, but
Can
we
you
do
make
not have
suggestions?
final say on it. And we had a plan in place today to park every vehicle you're talking about at night, just like my department does.
Right.
And they could drive to them in the morning, and they could drive their car home at night. And we were told that there's a plan that the building division is implementing to utilize tablets. And when they do that, the building inspectors will no longer have to report here in the morning, and so then they would do that. But at this point in time, they have declined to follow our plan to go along with that. Also, there is something that is called the vehicle usage policy that is out there and online. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Every year, we do an annual survey of all the take-home type vehicles, individually assigned vehicles. You today, the public today, transparently can go online and look up who drives what vehicle and where it parks at nighttime. So if they see, 12, whatever the apartment number is, they go online, they can tell you who drives that car today. Right now, in this meeting, you can look. And we are continuously calling department directors every day and telling them about abuses, just like you talked about. In fact, I made one of those calls at about 5:27 last night to a department director and said, I saw an individual doing this,
Right.
and you need to handle that. They're not under my purview, but before, I would get very upset because they were burning my fuel. Remember we talked about that?
Right.
So as we move forward, we're trying to put the maintenance in their budget as well. So when their guys are out abusing items, it comes out of their budget, not equipment service or ESDs, or Board of Public Service.
Like you said, we're all in this together, so it come out of all of our.
Exactly correct. But because I'm not the appointing authority over it, I have absolutely no say
Who
in
is
what
the
the
appointing
reprimand
authority?
of each department that has vehicles.
That's phenomenal.
It is.
We're gonna have to get to the bottom of it.
We have also done a study, and I just want to mention this,
Okay.
pardon me for a minute, and that is that a number of these take-home vehicles that you're referencing, 80, could be done away with immediately. And the people who drive those vehicles could be either paid per mileage from point A to point B, or a monthly allowance, and those are all highlighted in the vehicle policy and approved by ordinance. Again, it is up to the appointing authority of each department to say, I'm going to take that vehicle away, and I'm going to pay you this set amount to use it. I feel you're paying with the vehicles. I don't have one. I don't get paid mileage. I get no reimbursements for any of it, nor do I want it.
don't
But I
think
agree
they
with
should
you
even get
100%.
reimbursed. They should go to work and drive a city vehicle, and we create the maintenance. Why should we give them mileage and they're doing, that's what their job requires?
The city vehicle policy says there are no perk vehicles. Specifically says that. Specifically.
Okay, in my office, I've been in that office for 6 years, in the same office. It is molded, water stained, faded, ugly, paint is the same. And we request that we get a small piece of carpet about half the size of this table, about how big the room is with 2 people in it. Antonio sits in that corner and I sit in this corner, and it's like a fight all the time. And it's absolutely absurd. You can smell the mold, and then we request, they said, well, we don't have money. For a small piece of carpet like this, they need to go to Home Depot and take care of us because we're getting sick in that room. And I'd hate to have to sue the city, and, can I do that? Can I do that, Richard?
You're making class action.
But it's,
I think what you're referring to,
it's horrible in there.
tell me if
Go ahead.
got the right subject, and that is about a sink that overflowed on the 3rd floor and drained down the 2nd floor?
No. That's fine, that creeped over. But mine has been leaking from my radiator for 6 years. And if you touch it, it's rotted. It's right over in the corner where I am. I inhale more, I'm older, so I'll die before Antonio anyway. I'm inhaling all that mold and mildew all the time.
We'll look at it and we'll get that taken care of for you. The only thing I want to mention to you, Alderman, is that there are a number of floors that are under that, going through asbestos floor tiles, all the way down to Missouri marble on the bottom. And so when we take that carpet out, we have to abate the asbestos floor tile. So it's a little more than buying a piece of carpet at Home Depot. We have to take that out so you don't have a second-class action suit on the asbestos that's friable. So, Rick, do you have that, know about their office?
I'm aware of it, yes.
Okay, let's take care of it. Let's get a price and take care of it.
And I want to say, this is my last statement. 4th Ward cannot do more with less. I heard you say we can do more with less. Less is what's got us into the 50 years of this service. We can't catch up. So less is unacceptable, but I understand And I feel your pain, but my pain is 50 years of disservice in a community that will never catch up to the rest of the city. So we can't do more with less. Thank you.
Alderman French?
All right, I did have some questions here. Number one, so you guys don't have an electrical engineer?
No, sir.
Okay, so I know that a few of my projects that involved the city having to contract with an electrical engineer, I mean, the 21st Ward alone has paid so much money, we could have hired an electrical engineer.
Right.
And I'm sure other projects across the city required an electrical engineer. Wouldn't we just be best served by hiring one? I mean, we surely contract out more.
Let's talk about that for just a minute. There are multiple types of electrical engineers. There's electrical engineer that fixes the lights in this room. There's electrical engineers that do surveillance cameras. There are electrical engineers that build power plants. I could go on and on and on. If we hired an electrical engineer on our staff, it would more than likely, and traditionally has been, the type of electrical engineer that does design work for rooms and buildings and fire stations and so forth. It would not, for the most part, touch the projects in your ward.
So so like when, I think we had to contract most recently with an electrical engineer for the lighting project in O'Fallon Park, the new lights on the football field. So that's not something that an on-staff electrical engineer could do?
I think that one particularly would be. And I want to say I would love to have an electrical engineer. BPS had an electrical engineer when I started here 25 years ago. We had a whole room full of architects. We've cut because of budget cuts. So the answer becomes is, if I was given the money to hire one, I would love to have one to do the projects we can do. We predominantly do very small design projects and a lot of management of program management projects, because we don't have the staff today that we had 25 years ago to do design projects. They're not there. I don't have the depth to do it, other than small design type projects.
But would we, I guess the question is, and I don't know either way, just tell me, would we save money if we had one?
Well, I guess what we would have to do is we'd have to do an analysis and history of the projects we've done that include electrical, and then we would have to go back and say, you know, what are we spending on contract services and so forth to do it. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it'd be nice to have the in-house people.
Yeah, it's something to
Unfortunately,
look
we
at.
haven't had them for years.
It's something we'll look at, maybe we'll look at it later this year. The workforce monitoring, so now that the board bill passed, where we're actually monitoring the percentage of minority workers' hours, but also city workers that
Right.
actually work, are reports produced on this?
There are reports produced, and they're produced by Michael Holmes and Slate, because that is under their purview. And I have seen the reports on the O'Fallon Park Rec Center. I know we had a couple other projects, Convention Center, we've seen some reports on, but there are deadlines for those reports, so they should be being produced.
But the ordinance though calls for these numbers to be collected on all these city projects.
That's correct.
now. So is there a quarterly or an annual report that gives, you know, this is the percentage of minority hours, work hours performed on all city jobs? And what I'm really I'm very interested in, of course, minority, but also shocked by the low number of city workers
Right.
that are actually on these job sites. The ones I've seen, it's only been about 10-12% of the workers on these jobs actually live in the city.
Right.
So do you guys produce any of those reports, or can
We
you?
do not, that's a Slate function. But this person
But
who-
they don't do it like quarterly?
I haven't seen one in some amount of time, but it's a Slate function to do it. But again, it would be something that this person that I want to hire for BPS would be, you know, could log these in, and then they could say, hey, we haven't seen this report today. You know, Michael Holmes' staff produces them, and I'm not sure who would check that, follow that up.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I would like to see made available to the board on a regular basis, just a report of how well we're doing, and that way we have some good information. The capital improvement balances. I'd sent did we forward that on? I sent an email. I'll send you a request for all the balances in the different accounts.
Okay.
So that we can just kind of see
Sure.
where we're at for all the wards combined, just kind of see where we're at. So I'll send you that, and if you can send that back to me.
And Stephanie has done that. I know she completed the budget hearings in record time, and they went well from all indications I've been told
Okay.
for the ward capital stuff.
Okay. Again, I think that's probably good information to just, I know you guys do it on an individual ward-by-ward basis
that's
every
right.
quarter. It's probably good information for all of us to have, just so we can see, a lot of people, we kind of keep it, like we don't want people to see what we have, but it's all public record, so we need to,
Public record,
everybody needs to
that's
see
right.
what's going on. What was that vehicle website, city vehicle website?
No, off the top, it's the it's on the city government website,
It's on the
St. Louis City.
BPS site,
It's on the BPS
and I
site.
could send you the website for you.
Let's try this,
It's on the city
www.stl.org.
site, BPS.
Okay, but if I go to a BPS site, I'll be able to
Look at
find
it,
it from
it's under
there.
there, as well as the survey from last year, from 13, as well as the vehicle policy that Sam was referring to about how they're supposed to use the vehicles and not use them. That is all there.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't know about that. I'm gonna check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, a few years ago, we passed a 1% for the arts bill.
Yes, sir.
Are you guys following that?
Absolutely. The mayor and I have met with the Regional Arts Council on it. We talked about that. We have not had any projects come forward that apply to that. The ward capital projects do not, federally funded projects do not. The very first project that'll come out that will have the art ordinance included in it will be the Forest Park bond projects, and we are right on top of that.
Okay, great. I'll keep an eye on that one. All right, thank you.
Alderman Vaccaro?
No questions.
No questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we close, I'd like to make a statement.
I come down to City Hall all the time, and I appreciate being on Ways and Means, and it's a good opportunity for me to get the tough questions answered by my constituents that is required of me by them to come down and ask the tough questions to find out exactly what's going on. So a lot of times I'm jumping up and down like cheetah and screaming and hollering. I don't mean to offend anyone, but it's strictly business, and I'm down there for business only because I am mandated to take care of those people that elected me to take care of them. So a lot of times my questions seem to be off the beaten path, but I'm very serious about how we do politics, and it is much different from other wards because of what we feel that we haven't had. So I come down to get what they deserve, and that's why I use the type of tonnage and the rhetoric that I use to make sure that my constituents have the right answers. When I stand before them every 30 days and tell them nothing, I can continue to try to find some type of good answer to be able to tell them so they can hold their heads up and be proud and feel like they're part of this city, because we feel like we should opt out of the taxes because of the way we're treated. But we'll get to the bottom of it. But we're here, I'm just here to make sure that they get the service that they deserve. And that's the way I handle business for my constituents in that fourth ward. I appreciate you. A lot of people got their jaws tight, got little rocks in their jaws when I asked them certain questions and cornered me outside and said I wasn't their friend, but it wasn't about friendship, it's strictly business. And we can have a burger after the meeting. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from members of the committee? If not, we thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. We thank you for waiting.